Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're gonna make this cute little guy today. It's my Peacock. Yes, I do have feet on him, but they're not real feet. These are a lot of colors, but he's very, very pretty. I'm gonna go through the colors that you need before I start the video, because I think that'll be a little more helpful, because there's a lot here. Or you could pick your own colors, but this here is all sewn to, well, actually no, this is easy. This is not as bad as it looks. So anyway, let's jump right into this. I have an absolute terrible cold, so you're gonna have to bear with me. So the main color of his body is this Craft Smart, and this color is just blue. So that's his main color. I don't want to make a mess here. The other colors I used in his, those are going to be all Craft Smarts, most of them, is this Craft Smart, and this is the color Reef, and that's the color that I did around his feathers and stuff. That's Reef. The other color I used is Sage, I think. Yeah, this is just Sage. And I used that. Oh, I turn my ball back around. That is in his little head thing. And the feathers. So you don't need a whole bunch. Like one ball of each will probably do you, even this. Because this is after I've built mine. And I just did another project with this color, a little bit of this color in it. And I still have all kinds left to build this other one that I'm going to do with you today. So, make sure I get all my middle points. And then I used yellow, just a little bit of yellow. This is a Craft Smart too. I don't have the tag, because it's just yellow. I have yellow laying around all over it. And then I used this pretty little color in the feathers as well. This is called Mint. So those are the colors I used. Reef, Sage, Blue, and Mint. And then the yellow. The hooks I used are 4mm and a 4.5mm for this project. The, The feathers are, they take the longest time. I did 6 big feathers and then 4 medium-sized feathers. So you're only doing 10 feathers altogether. That's what I used the 4mm hook for, was the feathers, because I didn't want it too big. I'm just going to get a stitch marker out here before we start. We're building this in amigurumi, of course, my favorite. I'm going to sneeze. I have a terrible cold. Please bear with me. The yellow is in the feathers and the feet and the beak. And then a little bit of white to do the embroidery around the eyes. I used just this 2-weight cotton. It's just a little cotton blend that I have. The color is cream, actually, is the color it says on it. And that's what I used. And it's a fine 2, and it calls for a 4mm, but I didn't crochet with it. I sewed with it, so that's what I used for around his eyes, or her eyes, or whatever you wanna call it. The eyes that I actually used, just so you're fully prepared for this video. Oh yeah, you're gonna need black and white too to make these wings. And the eyes I used are just tiny little 11mm, I think. 11mm safety eyes, and then I just did the whole thing around it. So anyway, let's jump right into this. So I'm gonna start this video backwards because the wings, or the feathers, takes so long. I'm going to do both sizes with you. because you got to make 10 of them. So we might as well have those just done and out of the way for chapter 1, and then we'll move on. So we're going to use our 4mm G hook for the feathers for all sizes. So we'll start with the big feather, and I'm going to start with the blue, and I'm going to do a magic ring of 6 single crochets. So we're building this in amigurumi, and we don't slip stitch and chain 1. We just go right into the next stitch. Going right into that next stitch, I want you to do it with your mint. So it's a lot easier to change colors once you've pulled your magic ring closed. You can just pop back out of these 2 stitches here that you finished that last stitch with. Grab your mint and finish that last stitch. It's just easier to do it once the magic ring is closed. You can just leave that hanging there. We'll deal with it later. So in each stitch around, you're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. The marker goes in after the first stitch, not the second stitch. So if you want to weave your ends in here, I suggest it because you don't want, let me show you a feather, you don't want all this crap at the back. So if you can weave in as much as you possibly can, the least amount of stuff you're going to have at the back of your feather. So just do your absolute best. If not, you're going to have to do a lot of sewing in and stuff on 10 feathers. So short-term pain for long-term gain. So just pull up. If you think it's going to be tight, pull up on your stitch before you make it, because there's a lot to weave in at the back currently. So that's my round. This last stitch, I'm going to back out of this one. I'm going to go to my yellow. So in this round, I'm going to weave in my yellow and my green, and everything else can just hang there because I'll just cut it off later. So with your yellow, first go into your first stitch with a single crochet so you can put your marker in. So just the green and the yellow to be weaved in for one round. We're not going back, by the way. These can get cut off as you go if they're annoying, because we're not going back to those same colors. So with your yellow, you're going to do 3 single crochets. We've already done 1, so do 2 more. That's my 3rd single crochet. Your next stitch is going to get 2 half double crochets. So I'm pulling up on mine a little bit because my yellow is unfortunately worsted. I didn't have any 4-weight yellow. I have worsted, so that's a little stiff. Your next stitch is going to get the same thing, 2 half doubles in the same space. Your next 2 stitches are going to get 2 double crochets each. The next 2 stitches are going to get 2 half doubles each. And then you're going to have 3 single crochets back to your marker where we're going to do another color change. So don't finish that last stitch. This last stitch we're going to finish with sage if you're following my colors. I mean, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. So this round we're going to weave in the sage and the yellow. Those are the 2 colors we weave in on this round. Get your marker in there before we start. And then here you can cut off your blue. We'll cut it off shorter after. For now, just cut it off. Just so it's not in your way. So green and yellow is what the sage and the yellow is what we're weaving in on this round. That's your 1 single crochet. So the next 6 stitches, you're going to put 2 half double crochets in each. So that's 2 half doubles in the next each of the 6 stitches. That's my 1 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I should have a total of 12 plus the 1 single crochet is 13 stitches around here. So your next stitch is going to get 2 double crochets in the same space. Your next stitch, your next 2 stitches actually, are going to get 2 half triples. So a lot of people don't know what a half triple is. I absolutely love the half triple. So we all know a triple crochet is you wrap around twice and you go into your stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, which is why it's called a triple. You pull through 3 times. And for all of you out there that like to call a triple a treble, it is not a treble. A treble crochet is a UK term for double crochet. And I really can't stress enough how much I hate when I hear people calling a triple crochet a treble. Anyway, triple crochet is pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So pull through 3 times. This half triple is you pull through 2 and then you yarn over and pull through the last 3. That's a half triple. You get a good height, but it's not as sloppy as a triple. So you want to put 2 triples, 2 half triples in there. Pull through 2, pull through 3. And then your next stitch gets the half triple. So yarn over twice, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 3. And again, same stitch. So that's a half triple. The next stitch is going to get 2 double crochets, so we're just working backwards from our other side. And for the next 6 stitches, you're going to put 2 half double crochets in each of them. 6 stitches. I said that really backwards. Camera shut off and then I had to get a Kleenex. So this is my last stitch. So I want you to do 2 single crochets. You only have 1 single crochet left. The reason I said 2 is because I want to change color underneath this marker. So that's your 1 single crochet, and then go into this one for the color change. So the next color change is reef. So in this round you're only going to be weaving in the green and the reef. So, you know, keep a decent tail on your colors that you're weaving, like once you connect. Because we're changing colors, we don't necessarily need a stitch marker. You're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around for 34 stitches. If you are comfortable using a stitch marker, then by all means. But I want you to count anyway, just to make sure you have the right amount of stitches. Not that it matters. I mean, if you're 1 short, it's still going to look like a feather, but people tend not to count when it comes to stitch markers. So that's my 34th stitch. I'm not changing colors anymore. I'm staying with the reef, so you can finish that 34th stitch. So the reason I wanted to make sure there was 34 stitches in this row is because we're going to come around to do 17 stitches. I need you to be at the top because we're going to do a chain 3 picot, and then we're going to do 17 stitches back around. So I needed it to be even. But I mean, like I said, if you're a stitch off or whatever, it's not even going to be noticeable. So all these colors can get cut off right at its source if you weaved in. I've weaved in everything, except for my starter magic ring thing. I have not. So that can get weaved in as well, but I don't think you need to go really that far. So 3 of your feathers, this is the big one that we're finishing. Before we go on, 3 of your feathers need to have a really long piece. Sorry, that was my computer. I'm saving a video. So I use this blue color, and it needs to have a really long piece. I know we're in the middle of a feather and I decide to stop. This is just for sewing, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. So get back to the feather in a minute. All of this is sewn on using that long blue piece I just showed you. All of these, so you can see part of it right here, part of the string, are all, so I did 3 of these 3 big feathers that I started with. I make this little flap. It helps keep the butt up. So I make this little flap on the back of the thing. This reef color is used to sew to this on the base. This is going to be used to attach all your feathers to. That's how we did it. That's how I did it. So I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be flowy. I didn't want it to be rock hard solid, you know what I mean? So That's why I need the first three of your feathers to have a really long string still attached. The rest of the feathers, they don't need it, as long as it's long enough to go, you know, the length that this is, which is, you know, a foot, should be a foot. Yeah, it's almost a foot long. So as long as it's long enough to go almost a foot long, go a little bit over that, so you can make sure you're getting it all in. And I just went right up the back of most of these, and then when you get to the side, you have to go over to the side and stuff. So, but I'm sure you can figure out how to sew all these together. But that's what I need 3 of your feathers at the beginning to have, is that long piece of blue, plus the sewing piece, to sew it to the original butt thing that I made. This feather is not going to have it that I'm making because I've already got mine. So, cut my green off. So the very last round, for your big one, we're going to do a twisted single crochet for 17 stitches, and then we're going to do the picot. You might as well come back down here. So for a twisted single crochet, make sure you pull up on this and make the loop a little bit bigger before we start. That's important, so it's not tight when you twist it. This is the loop that's important, not this loop, this loop. This loop you still got to pull up on. So go in and pull up a loop, just to get the same height, but this is the important one, when you twist and then pull through and then pull up to give yourself the space you need. It also makes a difference on what your twisted crochet looks like. It will look different depending on how tight your gauge is. So we're going to do twisted 17 single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't talk and count. This is my 17th stitch. So that is one of my favorite things to do with feathers, putting this around the outside. So I'm on my 17th stitch, so I'm going to chain 3. Now, this is where the picot fun starts. There's nowhere to picot because we twisted the stitch. So you're just going to go down, you're just going to pick up whatever you pick up. So I'm just going to grab these 2 pieces. Just make sure you have 2 pieces. That's just for stability. And do a slip stitch. My camera loves to shut off at the most inopportune times. And then you can continue your 17 twisted back down. So when I go, so I have to pull up on this loop. So when I go down in to do my twisted, I don't want my picot to get all jacked up. So I hold it down, because when you twist, you're going to move that picot. So I hold it down with my finger, and then I twist. Oh no, I did not twist. And then I can let that go. So you definitely want the picot on the top of that feather. And then we just continue doing what we were doing. Twisted all the way back around. one more stitch left. So there's nowhere to go because it's all twisted, so just stick your hook in wherever you stick your hook in to fasten off. You're not even going to see the imperfection of doing that, so again, make sure you have a sewing tail with this reef color. Whether you use it or not, you can cut it off later. Just make sure you have the sewing tail. And then if you're doing your first 3, or make sure you're saving the 3 of the large with the long tail. So that's our large. The medium is a little different. The medium uses the same colors, just not, I didn't do the 2 rows of the reef. So let's start with our blue, and we're going to do the same thing, magic ring of 6 single crochets, and then switch to our mint. For those of you that are members and you are you've printed off the PDF for this, you'll see the mint written as the French term menthe. I can't even say that with my cold. Anyway, you'll see that written as the French term, but it means mint. But you can use whatever colors you want. You don't need to use. Actually, I'll show you. That's what the word's going to look like. M-E-N-T-H-E if you're a member and you've printed off the free PDF. Anyway, so I'm going to back out of these 2 now that I've closed my magic ring. It is, again, easier to... Well, let me try that again. So, I'm going to change to my mint. I am going to weave in everything. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around. So this is my final stitch, so I'm going to go to yellow. And this is where it changes a bit. So with my yellow, so I'm going to weave in my mint and my yellow and not worry about anything else. And with my yellow, I'm going to do 1 single crochet and an increase. Get under all my pieces. So that's 1 single crochet, and then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And again, because mine is worsted and I'm not happy about that, I'm going to pull up just to keep it not so tight. So it's my last stitch, my 1 single crochet increase. This leaves me with 18 stitches. So again, you can cut your colors off. This blue straggler I need to sew in, and I'm going to keep a long piece just in case I need it further down, in case I didn't make my other pieces that long. I'm going to just, for safety reasons, for precautionary reasons. So I'm going to go to my sage. So I'm going to weave in my yellow and my sage in this round. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets to start. So there's number 1 and number 2. Again, we don't need a marker because I cut this yellow off, because we've got a color change. The next 3 stitches, you're going to put 2 half double crochets in there each stitch. So that's my 3. For the next 3 stitches, you're going to put 2 double crochets in each stitch. Your next stitch is going to get 2 half triples. The next 3 stitches are going to get 2 double crochets in each. The next 3 stitches are going to get 2 half doubles in each. And then you're going to do 3 single crochets. Then you're going to change to reef. So on this last stitch, change to your reef color. And I am going to weave in my green sage and my reef, a little bit of a longer tail. And this is where we're going to start our twisted crochet. So this is a lot smaller of a feather, even though it doesn't look like it when it's on. You'll notice it in real life. So we're going to do 15 single twisted up till we get to the top, and we're going to do a chain 2 picot, and then we're going to do 16 twisted back down. So make sure you pull up on that before you start, just so that your twists aren't tight. This is my 15th twisted. I'm going to chain 2. We're going to do the same funny little picot as we did before. So just grab whatever 2 pieces. This one's a little harder for me for some reason. Man, I get awkward and silly when I have a cold. Alright, I'm in. I got it. Do a slip stitch. Holy smokes. So I'm just gonna keep a hold of my picot when I go into this next stitch and get my twisted, because I don't want it getting twisted. So it should be 15, 16 stitches back down. Mine was 16. Oh, my count's 15 count back down. Some of my other feathers I had 15, then I had 16, then I didn't really worry about it. Being one stitch off is not something that's noticeable, so that's your medium-sized feather. And then again, just wherever you stick your hook in to fasten off. Sewing tail. These little guys, they're going to be at the end, like they go on the end of the gathering of feathers, so you're not going to need anything, but you can keep a blue just in case. I mean, I keep a little one, but I don't think I'm going to need it, but you might as well be safe than sorry, right? The size difference. That's your large, that's your medium. These all go on first, and then the last bit are going to be at the back here. So when it's on, it's hard to see the difference, especially when I don't know how to zoom out. These are large, so I got 6 large, and then these last 4 are the mediums. So let's do our wings. We'll do all the small little bits before we start the body, because you're going to be spending, you know, the next day or whatever building your wings, and then so that's what we'll do for our chapters. So yeah, wings. So you need black and white. So these are really tight. I used the 2 strands of one black, one white. I used them together, but I used a 4, and the reason for that is because when I used a 4.5 to give myself room so it wasn't so tight, it was too big for the space. So I used a 4. So this is going to be tight. It's not going to be hard on your fingers or anything. I got some bad fingers, and it wasn't too bad for me. So you need to put your 2 strands together like that. I should have put a background down. Let me put a background down and I'll come right back. So I got green for a background. It might still have zebra hair all over it. So put your 2 pieces together. $4mm G hook and make a slip knot. You're going to chain 14. I had to count because I slipped up twice. I wasn't grabbing both pieces. So your first stitch, I want you to do a slip stitch. Then I want you to do 8 half double crochets. This is my 8th half double. You've got 4 stitches left, and I want you to put 4 single crochets in there. My black and white are worsted, by the way, so chain 1 and turn. So it's actually, my white's not worsted, my black is worsted, but the white is that thicker red heart stuff. So you're going to go into the back loops. So coming from the back might seem awkward, but you can hold it sideways if you want. And you're going to do 4 single crochets. Oh, stuck on something. So that's my 4 single crochets. So I'm pulling up just to make my life easier, because it is pretty stiff. And still keeping in the back loops, I want you to do 7 half doubles. So pull up before you do your stitch. It'll make your life a lot easier. This is my 7th stitch. So you should have a little N on here. We're not using that. That N's just going to stay hanging there like that. So I want you to chain 1 and turn. And then I want you to do a slip stitch in this first stitch. And then in the back loops, I want you to do 6 half doubles. And then 4 single crochets in the back loops. But Tara, I only have 3 stitches. No, you don't. This guy, there's a stitch right in there. If I can get my hook into it. It's tight, it's a turning over stitch, but it's right there. So that's your 4th one. Chain 1, turn your work. Make sure I'm on the right row. So in the back loops, again, you're going to do 3 single crochets. Oh, is that the same stitch? No. So that's 3 single crochets. Then you're going to do 6 half doubles in the back loops, which means we're not going to the end of the row again. That's my 6 half doubles, and you do have another stitch there. We're not going to use it, so chain 1, turn your work. And this is where we're going to start with a slip stitch. So go into that stitch and slip stitch. In the back loops, we're going to do 5 half doubles. Oh, I think I only got under the white one there. And then three single crochets. Oops. Chain one, turn your work. Back loops only, you're going to do 3 single crochets. Oh. And yarn over with both pieces. Then you're going to do 4 half doubles. Just make sure you're getting under both pieces, which seems to be what I'm struggling with. That's my 4 half doubles. So I'm going to chain 1, turn. Your last round is going to be 1 slip stitch. So I'm going to do the back loops only for the rest of it, so 3 half doubles in the back loops. Man, between my ball and my eyesight today. So that's 3 half doubles and then 3 single crochets. This turning over stitch just became a nightmare in this project, but we're done. So you need to fasten off with a sewing tail, and we're going to cinch this end. Oh, I can't even pull through. That's how stiff it is. So we can tuck this stuff in. So this is going to be the end of chapter 1, because that's a lot. You got a lot of feathers to make and then 2 wings. So we meet back in chapter 2. That's when we'll start making the actual peacock. So I'm just going to tuck this guy away. Oh my gosh, it's even hard to sew with. I made this peacock about a week ago, so I forgot how stiff it was. So thread your ends. I suppose you don't need both black and white to do this with, but I used it. So you're gonna just kind of go in and out. So you've got these raised areas. My suggestion is going in between the raised areas and then up through a raised area. Anyway, we're just gonna go through like that, in and out, in and out, in and out. Pull this through, so this pulls now your wing in like that. So now you just need to come back around like you're doing a whip stitch, right? So come back around to this side and do it again. In and out, in and out. You don't need to be as serious this time. It's tight. It's never going to come undone. Like I'm using the both pieces, but I knew I was on the wrong side of that. Anyway, come back around. Pull that. Now don't pull it so tight that it turns in on itself, because you still need to sew it to the bird, right? So that's your wing. The other one is made exactly the same. There's no left and right. All you have to do is turn it around. So there's no left and right for these wings that I make. Easy peasy. So just make 2 of them exactly the same. And then you've got your sewing tail to sew to the peacock when we get to that part. So that is the end of chapter 1. I know it seems short, but I mean, considering all the feathers and stuff you got to make. So I'll see you in chapter 2. Hi guys, welcome to chapter 2 of the Peacock. So we're going to start building the body. We're going to start from his butt and move up this way. So we're starting with this color. You can do whatever colors you want, but this is made separate from this. So it's easy peasy. This gets sewn to that. And the reason why this is so skinny is because peacocks have a really skinny neck. I didn't want to go too fat on this. So that is why. So we're going to make the body and then the head. So we're going to start with our reef color if you're following my colors. You're going to make a magic ring. I'm going to bring it back down here. Make a magic ring of 6 single crochets. I was holding that funny. I'm using a 4.5. The words would have been on the screen, but I'm using a 4.5. You're going to need a stitch marker because we're building this in amigurumi. So go into your next stitch, and we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around. So if you're using a stitch marker, it goes in on the first stitch, not the second stitch. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochets and an increase, and this will bring it up to 18 stitches. So that's my 1 single crochet where my marker is, and then 2 single crochets in the same space for your increase. And repeat, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. Next round is just going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches. Each increase is going to be followed by a round of 1 single crochet in each stitch, so I'm just going to put that on my pause screen. This next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase, bringing you up to 24 stitches. And then after that I want you to put 1 single crochet in each of the 24. That'll be on my pause screen. That's number 1. That's number 2. And then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. So bring you up to 30 stitches, and then I want you to do 1 single crochet in each of those 30 stitches. That's 3 single crochets. That counts as number 1. And then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. That's what you should have so far. Our last row with this color before we change to mint is going to be 1 single crochet in the back loops. The reason why I did the back loops is because I built this thing on and I need the front loops to do it. This thing helps the feathers stick up and drape. So to get this flowing motion that I have going on is because I built this. I built this onto the butt. So I need the front loops. So if you don't really care about the way your feathers sit, then you don't need to do this part. I love the look of it, so I'm going to do my back loops all the way around. I'll show you in a second. So your back loops, you don't need to turn anything over. This is your full stitch. This is your front loop. That's what I need to get into later. And this is your back loop. So it's standing right up, looking at you. So it can be a struggle sometimes to get into it. I take this finger and I push. It's hard to see, but I just push it on. I don't try to actually get into it. I use my finger and push it on. I don't know when I started doing that, why I started doing it. I used to struggle to get into it, but now it's just a thing I do, and I do it so fast that it's not even that noticeable, but that's what I'm doing. So I'm on my last stitch. I'm going to pull up a loop, but I'm not going to finish it with my reef color. I'm going to pull in my mint color. And I'm going to finish it. So I like, and if you've watched me long enough you know, I like to tie a knot here, but if you're not that familiar with tension and how tight it should be or what, you know, you don't have to do it. I just don't like when we weave in that this part, you know, if we weave halfway around is now thicker than the rest of it because we're weaving in 2 pieces, and I absolutely hate that. So I like to just tie a knot so I don't need to worry about weaving in or anything. Oh, I gotta drop the blue and pick up the green. So with green, we're gonna do an increase. Start increasing. We're going to use the full stitch, and we're going to do a 4 single crochet increase. So we're just going to carry on from where we had stopped at a 3 increase, to do the back loops and everything, so we're just going to carry on from there. So 4 single crochet increase, that's number 1. That's 4 single crochets, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. So you can cut your reef color off. We're not going back to it. We're going to be going to the blue color after we're done this. So with your mint, I want you to do 6 rows of what should be 36 stitches after our last increase there. And then we're going to switch to the blue color. I tried to get a peacock blue. That was actually called peacock blue, but Michaels didn't have it. They were out of stock, so just blue is what I got. Anyway, 6 rows of 36 stitches around, and I will see you on the other side. So this is what you should have, and we're going to go to blue. So on my last stitch, I'm not going to finish it with the mint. I'm going to finish it with my blue color. And I want you to do 6 rows of the blue, and then we're going to start decreasing with the blue. Everything's just going to be finished with the blue. So I'm going to cut my mint off. I love this mint color. I'm going to cut my mint off, and I'm going to do my 6 rounds. Stuff as you go. When we start doing the increases, it's going to be just harder to get down to the bottom. So just kind of stuff as you go, and I will see you after your 6 rows is done. So this is what my 6 rows gets me. It does look smaller than this because this is just bigger yarn. It's all 4-weight yarn, but this is just thicker. So, or this is thicker. So we're gonna start decreasing. You're gonna start with, and your decrease rows for the next couple of decreases anyway are going to be followed up by 1 single crochet in each stitch. So that'll be on my pause screen. You won't have to try to remember. That's number 1. We're going to do 4 single crochet decrease. That's 4 single crochets, and then I'm going to do invisible decreases, which are done in the front loops only. So I'm going to go in and pull up my front loop, and then I'm going to zip across and pull up my second front loop stitch. Yarn over, pull through those 2, and then finish the stitch. So that's an invisible decrease. You can do whatever decrease you want. I just figured the color and stuff, it'd be noticeable. So I have 30 stitches currently. Your next couple of rounds are going to be 3 single crochets and a decrease, followed by your 1 single crochet in each stitch. This will bring you down to 24 stitches. So I'm down to my 24 stitches after my 3 single crochet decrease and my 1 single crochet in each stitch. I've stuffed it. We're not doing the follow-up 1 single crochet in each stitch anymore. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and a decrease, and it's just going to be that, and then we're going to go into another decrease after this. So this particular one will take you down to 18 stitches. So that's two single crochets and then your decrease all the way around. So before we do our last decrease, just make sure this is stuffed the way you want it. Now remember, we are sewing a head to this, so you're going to want this end to be nicely stuffed. You'll still be able to get a finger or so down here after our next decrease. So we're going to do a 1 single crochet decrease. So bring it down to 12 stitches, and that's where we're going to stop. And we'll cinch from there because we need this to look like a decent cinch hole. Well, I'm going to. You can do whatever you want. If you want to make it even smaller than 12 stitches, you can. That's 1 single crochet and then your decrease. I'm still doing invisible. If you want to cut down on the gapping from your final decreases, just pull up on your stitches when you go to make them. Make them extended. That'll cut down on the size of gapping that you would normally get. So I'm going to fasten off here. So you can either have your sewing tail on your head, or you can have your sewing tail on your body. I'm going to have a super duper long tail because I'm going to use this to sew my head on. I'm just going to move my yarn. I just find it easier for some reason. I don't know, but I'm not a sewer. Keep this in mind as I'm saying these words to you. I am not a sewer. Anyway, make sure it's stuffed completely, and I'll meet you back here. I gotta change my battery, but make sure it's completely, like even under here, stuffed before we cinch it. So mine is completely stuffed, like literally. Because if it's not stuffed properly, when you pull to close your cinch, it could get all wrinkly looking and look horrible. So we're going to go through just the front loops, in and out like that, all the way around. So I'm back around, and then just pull your cinch closed. So that's what it should look like. We're gonna make that hole even smaller. So my lead's over here. I'm gonna kind of turn it sideways and pop across like that to make my knot. So make sure you're leaving a loop. I'm going to go through the loop. When you pull, wiggle back and forth. It tightens that right down. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it in this direction for a second knot, doing it the exact same way, and a wiggle. So that's what it should look like. So because I'm using mine for my head, now I want my jog on the bottom, so I'm just going to go in as close as I can to my lead. Now normally you would weave here, but because I'm using this to sew my head on, I don't have to weave. So I'm just going to pop up over here because I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be putting my head. I just know that it's going to be at the top here somewhere. So set that aside for now. Actually, let's do the butt. It's easier just to do the butt part of it before we even get to the head. So remember when we did the back loops, we need all these front loops here. So again, my jog is going to be on the bottom. So get your reef color, this same color. Oh, I used my 4mm hook for this. So I used a 4mm G hook for this. Just because. So somewhere, 1, 2, 3, find the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So go into this 8th stitch from what you think the middle is. I think that's my middle. Right now there's nothing on it, so it doesn't matter. The only reason that I'm saying it for me is because, I mean, I can move this, it doesn't matter. But that's at the bottom. So if that's directly on the bottom, then I gotta make sure that this is, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. I can't seem to stay on camera. So this jog is directly at the bottom. This I find to be my middle of my thing. So I'm going to count 8 stitches backwards because I'm doing 16 stitches. So go into your 8th stitch going that way, because we're going to build going this way. So pull through, make a stitch. So we're going to do 16 stitches. I'm not going back into this stitch. It doesn't matter if it's on the end. I'm not really going to use it. I mean, I'm going to go into it for my next row, but I'm not, it's fine to go into. So do 16 stitches across. This is my 16th stitch. I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn. So now I want you to put in this very first stitch right there, this one here. So if you pull back on here, in this very first stitch, you're going to put 2 single crochets. We're going to fan out a little bit. So this is our increase. So 2 single crochets, and then you're going to do 14 single crochets back to the other side. And where we started, you're going to put 2 single crochets in that stitch. So in this last stitch, which is small because I pulled it, you're going to put 2 single crochets in there. So I know it feels like it wants to roll over, and that's good because the whole point of this is to have it stand up and roll over. So to get it to completely roll over to the shape that I need it, I want you to chain 1, turn your work. And now you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of these stitches. And then that should really make it roll over and be the exact shape that we need it to give us that lift, to give us the flow of the feathers. So there's the method to my madness. Should have 18 stitches. Don't forget this last turning over stitch. So that's it for that guy. You can fasten off. You just need a sewing tail. Not a sewing tail, sorry, a weaving tail. So that is what you should have. So this gives you a nice lift for your feathers to go up and then drape down. That's the point of that. So tuck in all your ends. Try not to pull too tight when you pull down. So there we have our butt thing done, so we're good to start the head. So that'll be next. So I'm still using a 4.5. So for this head, you're going to start with a magic ring and blue if you're doing what I'm doing. The whole thing's blue. There's no starting. I'm not changing colors. You can change colors if you want. So 6 single crochets inside this ring. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around. So I'm just going to count to 12 as opposed to using my stitch marker. It's just, to me, it's a lot quicker. So I know I'm back around because of my guy here at the back. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. This will bring it up to 18 stitches. I'm going to weave in my guy. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. That was my stomach growling, if you heard that. That's number 1, that's number 2, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase, and this will bring it up to 30 stitches. And after this, I want you to do 5 rows of 1 single crochet in each of these 30 stitches. So that's number 1, that's 3 single crochets, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. So when you're done the increase row, then 5 rows of 1 single crochet in each of those 30 stitches, and I will see you on the other side. So this is my 5 rows. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and a decrease. This will bring you down to 24 stitches. That's number 1. That's 3 single crochets, and then I'm going to keep doing my invisible decreases. So your next round is going to be a little bit different because I wanted to actually make it a head. So I didn't want to decrease one side of it. I only want to decrease the other side of it. I said that wrong. So I want you to do is put your marker in first. I want you to do 2 single crochet decrease 3 times. And then the rest of it's just regular stitches. So that's number 1. Oh, sorry, I said 2, didn't I? That's 2 single crochets and a decrease. That's 1 time. That's 2 times. That's 3 times. So you should have 12 single crochets left. I have an itchy eye. Sorry, I had to take a second. You should have 12 single crochets left. You're just going to do 1 in each stitch back to the marker. So let's put the eyes on here. So where we just decreased is the front of your head. So I got my little 10mm eyes, and I got my backs. Please use your backs. The whole reason they're safety eyes is for safety reasons. So starting from the top, I counted down. I put these in between the 5th and 6th stitch, or rows. So that's 5 and 6. Let me recount that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th and 6th rows. And I said visibly 10 stitches in between. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That puts me over here. Just make sure you're in the same row all the way across. So their eyes are more on the side of their head. So when you're holding it like this, you can eyeball whether you think that's in the middle or not. We haven't made the beak yet, so the beak goes in between there. There's plenty of space to do this decorative little white part around the eyes. Oops, I just dropped my back. Which we'll do after the head is built and this part is stuffed, because it'd be a lot easier to do it then. It's easy to do, so you don't have to shy away from it. It's easy to do, and this is somebody that can't sew, and I managed to do it, so you'll be fine. So now you can start stuffing this anytime you want. We're going to decrease again. This time we're going to decrease all the way around. You're going to have an extra stitch at the end of this decrease though, just because we did this weird partial one. So I want you to do a 2 single crochet decrease all the way around. You'll have an extra stitch right before your marker, and just put 1 single crochet in that stitch. So I've got my 1 extra stitch. I'm just going to put a single crochet in there. I'm going to stuff mine. This is as small as we're going with the neck. So for the next 6 rows, we're just going to put, we should have 16 stitches. For the next 6 rows, you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 16 stitches. And then we're going to increase a bit because we want a little bit of stability for sewing it to the body. I'm not a fan of sewing heads on, which I already just said in a recent video. But there just didn't seem, I tried to design this like I would normally do my 2 different size of stitches to make something curve, but it just didn't look right. It looked funny, and then it was going to be too long and it would have been floppy, and I just finally said, you know, I just don't think this is going to work out, so I don't want to put too much stuffing in yet. So I ultimately decided to do it like this, and I'm happy with it. You know, it's not a big curvy neck like they have, but it's a stable neck, so you can put it up on something. You can display it without it looking funny. So 16 stitches, 6 rows, stuff as you go. We'll see you on the other side, and we'll start our increases. So this is what it should look like at this point. So this is what we did with our decrease. We decreased here, but we didn't decrease here. So when you stuff it, this is how you have to stuff it. Almost like a dinosaur head. So we're going to start increasing now, just to have a little bit of girth at the bottom to sew with. My increases are going to be weird. There's a method to my madness. I kind of wanted a little bit of a flare. So this next one is going to be 7 single crochet increase. So I didn't want to go flare right off the bat because it would look stupid. So I was graceful here. 7 single crochets and an increase. Next round is going to be 5 single crochets and an increase. This will bring you up to 21 stitches. And then I want you to do 1 single crochet in each of the 21 stitches. Your next 2 rounds, this one will be 2 single crochets and an increase. That'll bring you up to 28 stitches. And then you'll do a round of 1 single crochet in each stitch, and then that's it. So this guy is what you should have. You should flare out a little bit at the bottom. So this is as far as we're going. Now if you are following the PDF with me, for whatever reason I did not put fasten off at the end of this particular instructions. I don't know why, but if you are a member of my YouTube channel and you have the PDF, it doesn't say fasten off. It just goes right into the beak, but this is where you fasten off. I do not need a sewing tail because I have, where's my thingy? The sewing tail here from when I did my cinch. So I don't need a sewing tail on mine. But if you didn't do that, then you'll need a sewing tail on yours. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a weaving tail. Anyway, you don't need to completely jam all kinds because you're not technically supposed to see the flare. Like my guy here, you can't see the flare. He looks like it's all one side because I didn't overstuff. So try not to overstuff this. And if you got to pull him out just to not overstuff, then do that, because I'm already overstuffing. It's pretty easy to overstuff. So I'm just packing it now because I don't want the stuffing to get in my way while I'm trying to sew. So what I think we should do before we sew it to the body is do around the eyes and get the beak sewn on, because it's just probably going to be easier. So let's do the beak first to set him aside there. We'll get the beak done and sewn on. That way we know where the whites on our eyes are going to go. So if you're following the PDF file, you'll notice this goes right into the beak. And there's no fasten off. So I use my 4mm for the beak. This is worsted. So it's going to be a pretty tight beak, but it's not going to hang or slouch or do anything. It's going to be pretty tight. So I don't know what yarn you have, so it's going to be up to you to decide what hook you use, but make sure it's a tight stitch. You're going to do a magic ring of 4 single crochets. Because I wanted a point on it, that's why I chose that. And then a gradual increase. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So you're only going to do that twice. You only have 4 stitches. So I didn't use a marker, it gets in the way. That's 1 single crochet, and then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And then one more time, 1 single crochet, increase. So if you're wondering why I didn't start with magic ring of 6 single crochets if I was just going to make it 6 stitches, is so that I could get the point. So it is tight because that's the way I wanted it. So I needed a pointy beak. I cut this off. That's not going anywhere. That's how tight it is. It's not going anywhere. So I'm just gonna cut that off. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. This brings you up to 9 stitches. For the next 2 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 9 stitches. So I'm, again, not going to use my marker. I'm just going to count to 18. This is my 18th stitch, so you can see how pointy it is. I figured it wouldn't be that hard to see it against the green. So again, on the PDF I did not put fasten off, but you can fasten off with a sewing tail. I don't know why. Generally I put everything on there, but I guess that day I decided I didn't want to fasten off anything. So let's get this guy sewn on. This guy can be stuffed if you want. But it's not going to take much. Mine is so stiff that I don't think there's any need really, but I'll pack some down in there. Just don't put so much in here that you're going to lose that point. The whole point of me starting off like that was so it was pointed like a beak. So you just have to find the middle of your eyes, and I'm putting the top of mine in the same row. Oh, might help if I scooch forward. So I'm putting the top of my beak on the same row my eyes are in. If that helps as far as placement go. Oh my god, that pin didn't even reach. I need bigger pins. So that's where I'm sewing my beak on, just like that. So that's my beak sewn on. So this is what I used to do the white. So I'm sewing with this. I'll just use the outside. So you're gonna need a decent piece of white. See if I can get mine to look the same. So it doesn't really matter where you come in, it just matters where you come out. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a different needle. I want to use an actual needle. Not quite the one I was looking for, but it'll have to do. So it doesn't matter where you come in, it just matters where you come out. And I went up pretty high. Try to come up through spaces, not through the fibers. So I went up pretty high for the point. This is where I'm starting, is the point. So leave some hanging out. So you want the first bunch to come down over here, because that's what that's what it does. These do not connect. If you've ever looked at a bird, these white pieces do not connect. So I'm going to come out here where the other part starts. So that's what I got so far. When we wrap this, we can grab some fibers to pull it up, so don't worry about what it looks like currently. We're not going back because we don't want to fill this space in, because the whites of the peacock's eyes don't actually meet. I am going to pop down here because, here, let me show you why, because it has this jog. So I'm going to pop down here, and I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to pop out where I started. Try not to have a hole at any fibers. Come up clean through that hole. So that should give you that, and then we go back down here. And then pop out on the other side of that piece. It's hard to do when I gotta hold it up in the air. And then we get that. So that's not always gonna look that horrible, because this is where we start wrapping. So to start wrapping, let's see if I can zoom in any closer. No, I really can't. I'll zoom in with my editing. So we're going to start from this side of the white line. And we're going to grab some Peacock. Just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot, like fibers even. And come out on the other side of that white line. And we're going to wrap. So you don't need to pull hard, because we don't want this small. We just want it there. So don't pull hard. I'm going to come back to the other side to cover up that little starter point. So we got a bit of a crisscross starter point. And then I'm going to backtrack. So it'll be a little lifted in that corner, which is exactly what we want. And then we just continue. So grab a bit of the fibers as you're coming through. And that's why I wanted to switch. So don't pull tight, because we don't want that. We don't want this super duper small, because we're going to expand as we go, right? So you don't need to follow the exact line, because we do want to expand out from that line a little bit to make it a little wider at the bottom. But this is time consuming. It's not something that's just done in a second. But the outcome is fabulous. So if you don't want to do this part and you want to skip this part, I will put the timestamp on the screen of where you can go to next. So once you have what you want in the corner, I'm going to do one more across. Oh. What you get what you want in your corner of your eye, we're going to come over here and we're just going to start wrapping this top of the eye over here. So again, grab the fibers, because you don't want this to be that close to the eye. You want it to be pulled up. So go under the white and then grab some fibers up here so that it helps pull that up. I feel like I'm wrapping backwards. And I wrap on a diagonal because I think it looks better. I'm wrapping backwards. I gotta change my direction. So I probably already screwed my eye up, but I can't wrap like that. I'm wrapping trying to show you, but it's not working out for me. So by grabbing some of the upper fibers and pulling, this pulls this up. I'll have to come back and fix that later. So it's going in the right direction. This is what your wrapping should look like. I call it wrapping. I don't know what it's called. So start going a little shallower, because we're going to come down to to make a point near the nose. So you don't have to stop wherever you put your white thing. You can kind of go beyond that just so it's not noticeable. So once you're satisfied there, go down and pop out over here so you can start wrapping that. So this is all you do all the way back up. I'm gonna have to fix what I did up here because I was wrapping in the wrong direction, which I almost started to do again. Just make sure you're going up with your wrap for it to look decent. Don't go down like I was doing. So you want to make sure you're grabbing the fibers while you're doing this because you don't want it to be moving around or somebody be able to move it around or pull on it or anything like that. So I'm going to keep going because I got to fix my eye. But you don't have to. If you don't have anything to fix, you don't have to keep going. So now you just got to make it match on the other side. That was kind of the hard part, is making it match on the other side. So I kind of fixed mine a little bit there. So things can be different. Like mine eye turned out different than this eye, so it's not as good. I like this one better. But now I gotta match this on the other side. So I don't want to keep using this because it just gets all frayed and everything. But I also wouldn't worry about, you know, actually go in. Do this. Go in and just pop out somewhere. If you want to split the stitches, like split the hairs for a better hold, you can do that. I don't think it's necessary to tie a knot and do all that stuff I normally do when I'm cutting everything off. So go ahead and try to match your eye on the other side and I will meet you right back here. So that's my peacock face. I didn't do too horrible matching it. I did my other one I think way better. So I'm going to tuck this guy away because I don't need him for a sewing tail. There we go. So, where's my guy? So, make sure he's sitting with his little tail plume thing up and even. So I put him fairly forward leaning because by the time I get all the feathers on, it actually pulled him up straighter. So just try not to Try not to get the blue when you're sewing past this blue. I don't think I went into, see, I never went into that mint with my head. Because the whole point of doing this blue was to match the blue. So all these feathers do pull him up a bit, and then we're going to put the feet on. So the feet will also pull him up a bit. Oh, my head's going to be turned. See, I always get my head crooked. Alright. I get a really long... I've lost my needle. There it is. I actually put it back. See what happens when you put things away? You lose them. Okay. So you can sew this on any way you want to sew it on. I just did a whip stitch because I wasn't a fan of having to do it in the first place. But I designed it. I guess it's my fault. I'm the one that came up with the design. But I don't know any other, because I don't sew. So I mean, if you're a great sewer, you may know a stitch that's not going to look so horrible. For those of you that don't sew, I'm just going to explain to you what I'm doing. So I am I'm going down and popping out a hole. And I'm making sure it's a hole. And then I'm going back up the exact same hole and into the next stitch. That's what I'm doing. And I go around twice, just in case I've missed something. So I'm back around. I'm going to go again. This time I'm just going to grab the front loops. So I'm all the way around. I just wanted to go around twice, and then when I went into my front loops, it's just because I wanted it to kind of blend better. And I find that when you go into your front loops, it just gives a better blend, and it's not so noticeable that you just sewed on ahead. So it's just a thing I do. It's not certainly something that you have to do. So I'm just going to weave, and then we can start putting this guy together. Let's squeeze the feet in here, get him sewn on before we start doing feathers and stuff like that, and then that'll be the last thing that we have to do before. And then this also helps because he's leaning forward right now because of how you sewed it on, which is great. That's what we want. We're going to put the feet in, which is going to bring him up a little bit, and then the feathers are really going to level him out. So I used yellow. You can use whatever color you want. I just used my 4.5 hook. You make a magic ring of 6 single crochets. These are so fast. They're not real feet, they're just fake feet. So they're just built flat. And so 6 single crochets inside this magic ring. 6. So a peacock's feet are actually like gray or silver, and they're really ugly looking. So I just kind of made duck feet, if that makes any sense. You don't have to put any feet on this guy if you don't want to, but his feet certainly don't look like a peacock's foot. I'm just putting it out there. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch. That's my 12 stitches. So your next stitch is going to be a slip stitch. So slip stitch. And then I want you to do 3 half triple crochets in this next stitch. So half triple is you're going to yarn over twice. You're going to do a triple crochet. You're going to yarn over twice. You're going to go into the stitch. You're going to pull through. You're going to yarn over and pull through 2. And then you're going to yarn over and pull through the rest of them. That's a half triple. A normal triple would be you pull through 3 times, which is why it's called a triple. A treble is a UK term for a double crochet, so it is not called a treble. This is a triple. I see a lot of videos where people are making a triple crochet and calling it a treble. It drives me crazy. You're going to put 2 more in there. So wrap around twice, go into your stitch, pull through 2, then pull through 3. One more time, pull through 2, pull through 3. So that's your 3 half triples. And then you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So that's going to curl right around like that. And that's going to be the feet. So this next stitch is going to get, so pull up on your loop here, just to give it a little bit of height. You're going to do 3 half triples in this next one. Pull through 2, pull through 3. Don't worry about this elongated stitch that happened when you did that, because when it comes around, you'll never notice it. Slip stitch into the next stitch. One more time. Pull up on your loop here. Start your 3 half triples. And then slip stitch. So that's the feet. You can go into this next stitch and fasten off with a sewing tail. You don't need much. It doesn't take much to sew it to the bottom. And then you're basically just going to put your foot down, set this guy on it to determine where you actually want your feet. How do you want your feet? Do you want your feet to stick out like that? Do you want your feet to be more at the front? Do you want your feet? So that's completely up to you. And I would just put your guy down. Keep in mind, he's probably still going to be lean forward a bit because we haven't put all the feathers on yet. So I just pulled down on the back of mine to determine where I wanted my feet. And then I sewed it on. So that's what we're going to leave chapter 2 with. We're going to do all the feathers and stuff in chapter 3, and we're going to get the plume done and put our wings on in chapter 3. So it's going to be a really quick chapter 3. But I'm going to end chapter 2 here with getting your second foot made and then sewing it on wherever you want it on. And I'll see you in chapter 3. So welcome back to the next chapter. We're going to be doing our feathers, our head plume, and our wings. So we already did our wings and our feathers. And so the only thing left to actually build is the head plume. So we can do that after we sew everything on. I'd just like to add, so in the last chapter I kept saying about the PDF file is not going to have the fasten off spots because apparently I didn't write it. So I changed my whole PDF file, so it's going to be correct now. I just wanted to put that in the video so everybody knew PDF's going to be fine. Let's not do these first. Let's do all the feathers first because gives us a better idea of where the wings are going to go. So I'm just going to zoom out here. So we need to start with 3 of the ones that have the really long tail. That's my 3. So each one of these blue tails so we're going to sew it on with the point away from the bird like that. So each one of these blue tails has to come out the top. So I'm just going to weave each one of them up. You don't need to go into the point, just needs to be at the top of the feather because that's what we're going to use to add all the other feathers. So it needs to come out the end like that. So let's do that on all of ours first. Just try not to go through to the other side. Like, don't make sure your needle's not going too deep like mine just did. You just want this to show in the back. Actually, we don't even want it to show in the back, but there's no way of getting around it. So now we don't use the blue, we use the reef color. So this color that we fastened off with, that's at the bottom of the feather, that's what we're going to use to sew to our little tail that we made. So it doesn't really matter how you sew it to the tail, just keep in mind how it has to be spaced. So they're going to overlap. So for the one that I did obviously one on top and then the 2 underneath like it's going to overlap. Obviously I'm not holding it properly because I don't have 15 hands. So that's how you got to sew it on, is kind of even. And up against the body. Like, you want it up against the body when you're sewing it. So once you get it sewn on, you can just come back here, make a knot. I was just going to cut it off, but I'm going to weave. You might as well take care of it as you go, so it's not such a big mess to take care of later. So I'm just going to weave a little bit. I don't need to be too super serious about weaving, because I just did that knot, but not sure why that stuck on my scissors. So I'm going to do the other outside, and then I'll put my last one in the middle. It's just easier that way. So then this gets sewn to the body, and then you can kind of just tack these to each other. So I'm just going to go up here, and I'm going to kind of tack these feathers together. They don't have to be completely. I'm just going to do it at the butt area, and then come back down and continue sewing. I knew it was going to be a mess to show you, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. So make sure that goes on top. I'm going to tack these two together, and I'm just doing a couple of stitches, and then I'm going back down into here. So once you are satisfied with what you got going on, you can just make a knot. So now all three of our feathers have these long blue pieces coming off of them. And see, he's already sitting up straighter just with those three feathers on it. Pulls him right back, and now he's perpendicular. So I'm going to have to put him up there because this is going to be a thing. So let's start with the one on the side here. You're going to thread your blue. Now, each of these have a sewing tail. You probably don't need that much, but keep in mind the feathers have to go this way. So you're going to weave, and it doesn't have to be every single stitch, just wherever you can get it in. Just make sure it's only the back side. You're going to weave that on, and then you can tack using your string from your feather. You can tack these together and maybe this little bit together just to hold them in place. I'm just going to finish getting to the top of this feather for the next feather. And that's what you're going to do. But I would do one at a time. So now I'm just going to use this, which is on this feather here. I'm going to go up into this feather, but I'm going to just stay in the reef color. And I'm just going to tack those two together, just so they don't flop around too much. And then I think I'm going to go up here and maybe tack just the edge of those two together. But it's completely up to you, whatever you want to do. It's not a big deal. It also saves anything from rolling up, curling up. It's going to curl a little bit, you know, especially if your house is damp or whatever, but it's not going to be too bad. So then you just pop underneath and make a knot. Weave a bit. No one's going to be looking underneath your feathers to see what's going on. So you can choose to go however close you want to go. So now you still got all these blue strands to do your medium size feathers with. You only have 4 of those, so the whole idea is to taper it down. So with this, I just want to tack some of this stuff together. So I have enough of this that I can just kind of come across weaving. To come over here to tack this all together. So now that we're at the last bit, we only have these 4 left to do. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to show you how I did it. So that one obviously goes in the middle there. This one goes in the middle here. And then this one goes in the middle here. And then this last one, not that you can see, but it just kind of goes on the end of this. It's hard to see. So that's what I did. And then whatever blue you have left, I just started tacking them all together with my blue. So that's what I'm going to do off camera, and I will meet you right back here. So that's my guy. Now these will roll up a bit. There we go. Your peacock's tail. So he's quite large. There he is. I tilt him back a little bit. I can get almost all of him in. He's quite large. But there was no point skimping here if I was going to make a peacock. Do you understand? Do you know what I mean? So now that we've got that on, we can figure out where our excuse me, where our wings are going to go. So it's the short part at the top and the long part at the bottom, or well, running that way. So some of their wings are tucked in behind their feathers generally, so that's why I decided I'm going to put mine You don't need to sew on with both pieces, but I feel like it's a pretty good hold, so I don't mind doing it. Just sew the top. Don't sew any of that stuff. Go ahead and get your second wing sewn on. Now if it's just pop it around. I mean, this is a two-sided wing. It can go either way. My battery's gonna die, so I'll just sew until my battery dies. So those are my wings on. I think I almost got them even too, which is a shocker. So literally the last thing we have to do is the plume for the top of his head. So the head plume is going to be built with a 3.5, which is an E. I decided to do the blue for the top little bubble things, and then the sage for, let me get my penguin. My peacock. So I did sage for this, and then the bobble parts at the top I did in the blue. So, and that's how my feathers rolled up a bit. So, I mean, they're not excessive. Let me compare sizes now. Let me go way out. So this is the bird originally built. So they've all rolled up a little bit. I mean, it's not quite sewn together the same either. Like, this is sewn in way deeper than these are sewn in. But pretty close. So that's how much they've rolled, which isn't a whole lot. And that's without blocking. I didn't block any of this. Okay, onto the plume. Get your 3.5 in whatever color you're using for that stocky part, not the bobble part. And that's where we're going to start. So you're going to start by making, oh, come back down here. I need you down here. Chain 8. You're going to do 3 single crochets. And then you're going to do 4 half doubles. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. In the back loops, you're going to do 4 half doubles and 3 singles. So if you have to turn it sideways to see these back loops. That's my 4 half doubles and then my 3 singles. So the third one is this turning over stitch. So you can literally turn it sideways to get into that back loop, just like that. Chain 1, turn your work. Holy sneeze attack. Okay. Sorry. You're going to do 3 single crochets. I told you, I've got this bad cold. And then you're going to do 4 half doubles, all in the back loops. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Everything's going to be in the back loops. That's how we get this ribbed look for the plume. And the turning over one at the end. number 4. Chain 1, turn your work. You're gonna, almost the last row of this, we're gonna do the bobbles. You're gonna do 4 half doubles in the back loops. Oh gosh. And then you're going to do 3 singles. So I want you to fasten off. Oh, do a single. I want you to fasten off, and then we're going to reattach with blue, but I want you to keep this for a sewing tail and a cinching tail. We're going to cinch a little bit. A little bit. So tuck this guy away. So reattach with your blue and your 3.5. This is the back. This is the front. It's got raised ridges, which is as close as I could get outside of using wire to make this thing on his head. I think it turned out pretty good. So you're going to come in through the back with your blue and reattach. So just reattach with a single crochet. In each kind of raised area, so I've got a raised area here, even though I'm at the back, it's a raised area. So I want you to go into this area with a half a double crochet. Let's say that. So you're gonna, like you're starting a double crochet, but you're gonna pull through 2 and stop. Pull up, just so it's not tight. Yarn over, go back in, like you're gonna do a double. Pull through 2 and stop. You're gonna do this 2 more times in the same space, so it gets pretty crowded. Pull through 2 and stop. Yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 and stop. So that's 4 times. You should have 5 loops on your hook right now. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 of those, and then you're going to secure the top, and then this is where it turns into a bobble. You're going to come down here into the next stitch beside it, and you're going to make a single crochet, and that's what turns it into a bobble. Now some people like to do a slip stitch here, and that's perfectly fine. Matter of fact, let's just do a slip stitch. You can either do a slip stitch or a single crochet, and that's what turns it into a bobble, and it'll be a bobble on both sides. The reason I said to start at the back is because you can kind of see it's not a complete bobble at the back, but at the front it's a complete bobble. So we go into this next raised area and we do the same thing. So a half a double, so pull through 2 and stop, yarn over, go in again, pull through 2 and stop, yarn over, go again, pull through 2 and stop, one more time, pull through 2, And now pull through all 5 and secure it. And then you got to pull this over to see this stitch next door. Oops, I didn't get into all of it. Get into all that stitch and slip stitch or do a single crochet. Last one. Pull up loop, pull through 2. The higher you pull up, the bigger your bobble's going to be and the nicer it's going to look. So keep pulling up. One more time. Pull through 2 and then pull through 5. Secure it. Now we got nowhere to go. We got nowhere to go, so we're just going to go right down here and we're going to do our slip stitch and fasten off. Sew with your sage, not with your blue. So this just needs to get weaved in. Even though it's blue on top of your head, you can't start sewing from up here. We have to cinch with this down here. And that's why I say that. So there's your 3 bobbles. You'll just have to put them back into shape a little bit. So we just tuck in these ends here. And from both sides, like I said, from both sides, front and back, this looks pretty good as a bobble stitch. So just try not to over weave. Does that make sense? You don't want to pull that out of shape. So with this bottom piece, we're going to go in, out, all the way across. So you're cinching. It's like we did with the feather. So pull that to cinch it and then come across and secure the cinch. Because we want this to look like it flares out, right? Grab your Peacock to zoom out. And then sew it to the head. So, as a sewer, I did not find this easy. However, I did a pretty good job. This has never fallen down, by the way. I sewed mine to my head days ago. It's never even flopped over. So, which I think is pretty good. That's pretty tight in there where we did the cinch. So make sure you use that space. So once I sew on that side, I did want to come back over here and put a couple of stitches up this way because I don't want it to flop over ever. So when I did that, I just found, for whatever reason, and I don't know because I don't sew, that it kind of helped it stand up a bit. So I don't know what that was all about, but mine's never fallen over. I'm gonna sneeze again. So I just noticed this plume has 3 bobbles on it. This plume has 4 bobbles on it, and this is a lot bigger. So my PDF, I obviously missed a row when I was doing my video. Just now, I must have missed a row. Maybe during my sneezing fit, I thought I was on a different row because there should be 4 raised areas and 4 bobbles, but the 3 look fine to me. I just noticed that on my other doll. So when you're done sewing, you can't really weave, I suppose, unless you've used the blue. there we go. I can't believe I screwed that up, but there's our peacock, guys. All done. I'm pretty sure that's it. Let me check my computer. Sometimes when I'm sick, man, I tell you, I'm not the smartest cookie. Yeah, I think I got everything. So I missed a row here and I missed a bobble. No big deal. I think 3 looks fine. Doesn't much look different from my 4. That's the difference between my original design and my screw up, because I was having a sneezing fit or whatever was happening. I don't know. I missed a row. There we go. Everything out of the way. He looks so good. Thanks for joining me, guys. This was a lot of fun to design and make. I love it. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.